Hey guys, welcome back to Valor and Virtue. Thank you for coming back. In this week's episode, actually moving forward for the next 3 episodes, we are going to kind of just go over the last 7 years of our marriage and really just kind of talk about everything we walked through, like the things that we struggled with, how we got through them, in hopes that you can relate to that. But I have to give a disclaimer this week. So 2 really funny things. One, it's been a week because our toddler is 3 and we're pretty sure he flushed a toy down the toilet. We came home to a flooded bathroom, like a lake.
Upstairs.
Upstairs. We have a 2-story house. And then it started to flood into the kitchen. Of all the rooms to flood into, in the kitchen.
Through the ceiling.
Through the ceiling, where we eat. So that was an adventure. Kids didn't go to bed on time. We got Chick-fil-A for dinner. We went to bed at 1. It was an adventure. And then a second, we have our kids today, which we normally don't have them, which is fine. But if you see an edit, it's probably because we had to go manage our children.
Yes.
So it's fine.
Or if you hear screaming in the background, that's why.
They're fine. I'm just kidding. But we just want to say welcome back. Thank you for coming back. And we'll kind of just jump right in. It's really funny. A lot of people don't know our story. And then when they hear it, they're like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
But it worked out. So I'll kind of share the short end of my side, and then you can kind of share your side, and then we can kind of move forward. But when we met, I had actually been previously married, which I will talk about by myself in another episode. And I was married for a year and a half, and it was a pretty abusive relationship. And so I think I was 3 years out of that marriage already. I got married when I was 19, got divorced when I was 21. And when we actually re-met, which is a whole nother story, because we went to high school together, and I didn't know who he was. It's fine. Love you. It all worked out. But when we re-met, I was 24. You were 22.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, 22. So when we ended up getting together in November. We kind of started talking because I came back and saw you for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And at this point, I remember we were we're just gonna take things slow. We're just gonna chill out. We're not gonna be stupid. Well, we were stupid. Not stupid. I'm really glad. But we ended up talking in November, and then we officially started dating Christmas Eve.
Yep.
And that was when we were an official couple, and all the while we knew that coming in February of the next year, he was going to deploy. It was going to be his first deployment. And our plan was to just date throughout the entire deployment. And because he's in the Army, they deploy for literally about a year, 10 to 12 months, which is a super long time. And we were super new to dating. And then it was really funny. So he had a planned leave. So he was supposed to go to, where did you go?
Fort Hood.
He supposed to go to Fort Hood for pre-deployment, and then he had a 4-day leave, and then he was going in country. And so we were talking on Valentine's Day,
Yep.
and we were like, what do we want to do on that 4-day leave? Should we go to this place or that place? Should we go to the beach? Should you come home? Because we didn't know you were getting a 4-day leave. We thought we said our final goodbyes in February at the airport.
Yeah.
And then we found out he was getting this 4-day leave. And we were talking, we couldn't figure it out. And I was on the phone and I was like, or we could just get married. I was 100% kidding. I 100% was joking. And what was your response?
I was yeah, maybe we should get married. And we did.
And we did, yeah. We made that decision. We ended up talking to our family. He had to call my dad and ask for permission, which was super terrifying because I was like, please, Dad, I love him. I'm 24 years old. I'm begging my dad, and he's only known him 2 months. Ridiculous. So we ended up planning our wedding in 1 month. Literally 1 month and a day. And that was wildly stressful because there was a couple times we thought your leave wasn't going to happen. And then I remember your flight got in super late. For our wedding rehearsal, like my best friend was Mark because he couldn't be at the wedding rehearsal. Like she pretended to like walk down the aisle with me and like pretended to stand there with me because he couldn't even be there for rehearsal. So anyway, we got married a month later and we had 4 days together, essentially. We got married and we had like 2 days at home, and then I had to drive you to Texas.
I got home I got home for Pass on a Friday night. We got married Saturday afternoon. We had Sunday together and Monday together.
And then we left Tuesday.
And then we drove back to Fort Hood to drop me off so that I could deploy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that, I think, it's really funny because I thought our situation was super unique. The longer we've been married, the more I've heard a lot about how military spouses will just go to the courthouse, they'll get married, and then someone will go on deployment. And I mean, it makes sense. Like, something we talked about was, like, God forbid something happened to him. Like, he was like, I want you to be taken care of. And I know that the military would do that if something happened to me. And then for us, I'm speaking as you.
Yeah.
If something happened to him, the military would take care of me. And so that was a huge factor. And then also we had grandparents that were getting kind of old, and we really wanted them to see us get married. And it was a really good thing because 2 of his grandparents ended up passing away on that deployment. But I think on this part, the one thing we want to kind of talk about is whether it's a new relationship or a new marriage, facing long distance, whether it's like a TDY, a deployment, because that was hard. Literally the entire first year of our marriage, he was in another country.
Yeah, didn't even get to go on a honeymoon until after the deployment.
Yeah, and I think especially in even a first responder relationship, like even working as a police officer, which we'll talk about later, like you have so much time apart from one another. Like, it's not you leave for your job in the morning, you come home 8 hours later, you spend the evening together, and then you leave in the morning again and you have the weekends off. Like, whether you're a military couple or a first responder couple, you spend so much time not together. And, I just kind of wanted to touch on, like, how you feel we got through such a long time apart being so new in our relationship.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was really hard. I think the number one thing is, and we've talked, I mentioned this on our last episode, that we're both extremely devout Christians.
Yeah. I'm going to interrupt you for a second, but I know we are newly married, but there's always like the fear of cheating that you hear about all the time in the military community. And I was like, that's not who he is. Like, we both love God. We don't believe in that. That's not going to happen. But I think in the back of your mind, especially newly married and not like being together, it was scary for me.
Yeah,
I know not for you.
No.
But
yeah, I wasn't worried about that. But yeah, so it was hard. And like I said, we're Christians, and we're not just Sunday Christians either. We're pretty serious about it. So I think that for me, that was one of the main things that helped me get through that year. Was my faith.
sorry, go ahead.
I will say though that deploying nowadays, as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, which is before my time, I mean, we were able to FaceTime.
Yeah.
And this was in 2015.
Yeah.
My first deployment was 2015. So even then, we were able to FaceTime and stuff, and I had internet, so I could talk to her and stuff. So that helped a lot. That was probably the biggest thing that helped get us through that first year.
And I'm just gonna say it because we said we were gonna be real. We said we were gonna be real. And if you know that your spouse is going to be on a long TDY or a deployment, like, talk about what intimacy looks like to both of you during that time. because that's huge in a marriage.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially in your first year.
yeah, when you're married to someone, like, that's all you've got. Like, you don't have anybody else. So you need to be willing to humble yourself enough, because it can feel like prideful or embarrassing even. Like, you need to be able to be humble enough to sit down, because that's something we did. We talked about before you left and throughout the entire deployment, was stopping, and we weren't perfect at it, because I know we got in arguments over it, but being like, hey, what are your needs in this area, and how can I help meet them? And then really hearing each other out, because I don't know his schedule. I don't know what he's dealing with or what was doing. And same for here, you know. So, you know, obviously everyone always says open communication is key, but I feel like it's the only reason we survive. And that's such a big specific area when your person is not around.
Yeah. Especially for guys. I'm sure any dude who's deployed can relate with me on this, whether or not he's been open about it with his significant other or not. Just because you're gone for a year doesn't mean your needs go away, and it is really challenging. And if those needs aren't channeled in a healthy direction towards your spouse, that's when things like,
I mean, it's a foothold, like it's a door open.
Yeah, that's when things like adultery and pornography and things like that can step in. So it's something you want to definitely talk about with your spouse. If not, it's gonna be a really long year of frustration.
And like I said, just trying to be open to listening to the other person. And that's something I probably wasn't the greatest at during our first deployment. I definitely think I did better our second deployment. But our first one, I was kind of like, you don't really need that, or you don't know what my life is like here. Like, it was very self-focused when he would try and talk to me about it in the first deployment, especially towards the end, because you're both just tired, right? Like 9-10 months is a really long, 12 months is a really long time to be apart from your other half, and so frustrations start to rise. But I know when we could sit down and just chill out, honestly listen to each other, and genuinely just take in what the other person was saying, is where we made the most ground. And like, something I would say we learned was that we didn't do very good of the first deployment, that I would say if you're stepping into your first deployment or your first really long TDY or, I don't know, training, whatever, where they're apart from you, is like, first thing in your conversations, just be like, how are you? And start with the positive.
Yeah.
Like, think about like making a sandwich. Like, you're gonna put the positive on top, then if you have something negative you're dealing with, you're gonna put it in the middle, and then you want to end on the positive again.
Yeah.
Because something we like fell into and struggled with was just venting to each other.
Yeah.
You know, we'd maybe get half an hour to talk, and we would both just vent about what was going on in our lives, and then we left that conversation feeling like depressed, yeah, like the world was ending.
All you did is talk about the negative stuff.
Yeah.
And venting is important. You don't want to not talk about that stuff because it builds up. But if you're in a long distance situation and all you have is a few minutes to talk, do not spend the whole time talking about the negatives, because it's going to negatively impact you. And I think it impacted me more than it did you.
Yeah, I think that's because most men are fixers, right? Like, you're a fixer, you want to fix it. Like, and so when I would come to him and I would be like, I'm dealing with this, and this, and he's thousands of miles away, he can't do anything about it. And I remember it would just make you so frustrated, and then I would be upset at his frustration. Because as the woman, like, we just sometimes we just want to hear, or we just want our men to hear us. Like, we just want them to listen to us. As men, you obviously want to fix it. And so I think something we learned, because we weren't good at it, was to not just come at each other venting all the time. But I think, you know, I think those are the key things I took away from that deployment, was like, one, being open and honest about like your intimate relationship with each other as a married couple, like being willing to just honestly talk about it and accept each other's needs. And if it's something you feel like you can't do or you're struggling with, then talk about it. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to be like, yeah, I'll just do whatever you need, because then resentment builds. which is something that happened to me because I just thought I was being a good wife, right? And that affected us when he came home. But he never knew. He never knew because I never said it. So, like, it wasn't his fault. It was a problem that I created on my own. So being honest and communicating about being intimate with each other, and then really focusing on when you have the time to talk in person, whether that's face-to-face via FaceTime or just on the phone, like, start with something positive, check in with each other, and then if you need to vent about something, do that, and then end on a positive note again.
Yeah.
I think those are the biggest things I learned from that deployment.
I would agree. Have some thick skin. Be willing to listen to some. If you ask the other person, hey, what can I do better? Have some thick skin.
Yeah.
And listen to
I
what
didn't.
they say. Well, I was referring to me. But
I get my feelings hurt pretty easy, so I know that.
Yeah. That was our first year of being married, was me being gone.
Yeah, so that was the first year of marriage, and so do you want to kind of recap that timeline?
Sure, yeah, so 2014, we start officially dating Christmas Eve, and then I left for Fort Hood on Valentine's Day.
No, February 6th. February 2nd. I have it on my phone. I looked at it the other day.
Okay, February 2nd, I leave for Fort Hood for pre-deployment.
And we think he's gone.
I think I'm gone. Then we find out I get a 4-day pass in beginning of March.
So on Valentine's Day.
So on Valentine's Day, we decided to get married on my 4-day pass. March 15th rolls around. I get married.
We get married.
3 days later, I'm deployed.
Yeah.
And I was gone for 9 months after that.
Yep. It would have been 10 months total, but because we got to see you and get married,
Yeah.
It was 9 months. So he came home 3 days before Christmas, which was wonderful because he was home for Christmas. They were all home for Christmas. It was this big, awesome ceremony that they did. They came home in a big C-130 and they all got off the plane and there was flags. It was amazing. And something that no one talks to you about is post-deployment, like reintegration. And we were thrown for a loop into reintegration and we're just going to cover the second year of our marriage, and that'll be the episode today. But you got home, you had 30 days of leave, right?
Yeah, ish.
And that was great. Like, I think what we don't realize is that most of the time that first 30 days is amazing. And it's like blissful and you're just happy they're, well, I shouldn't say 30 days, the first like week or two.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you're so happy they're home, you're doing anything for each other. It's like that honeymoon phase all over again. And thankfully for us, kind of during that time, we actually went on our honeymoon. Yeah. So we took a 2-week honeymoon. We lived it up. We had the best time ever. And then we got back and had, maybe 2 weeks left of leave after all of that. Yeah. And that's kind of when the hard started to set in. Because all of a sudden, and especially for us, because we had never lived together. Like, we lived together for 3 days. Really 2, actually. And for us, that's when the hard started to set in, because you're like, holy crap, now I'm living with this person I've never lived with before. But we've been married for over a year. Or almost a year. And it's hard. And we also had your police academy coming up. Do you remember when that started?
It was in July of 2016. So about within 6 months of me getting home.
Yeah, so you went back to work as a PSA? So you went back to work as a police service aide. And then we knew that we had the academy coming up, the police academy coming up. And I kind of just want to dive into the police academy, because that was really the second year of our marriage. I know there's kind of that in between like March, April, May, June, July. So there's a good like 4 months that weren't terrible, but it was just, like I said, nobody talks about that post-deployment phase, but I kind of want to maybe save that for another episode, I think.
Okay.
Or what do you think?
Yeah.
We're going to touch on it.
Yeah, let's touch on it.
Go for it.
Yeah, so reintegration, it is a challenge. I mean, our first deployment again was unique in the sense that we were married for a year, never lived together other than 3 days before we were deployed. So coming back to living together after being married for a year, but not living together, it was hard. And we were young too. I was 23 at this point. Erin was 25. So we were young.
Yeah.
She was previously married. I was not.
We also did not do any kind of like premarital counseling, obviously, because it was so fast. We didn't, which we needed. Like, we should have done. I think something we quickly figured out was that we needed to go to counseling, because we weren't good at talking it out. Like, I had tendencies from my first marriage where when we would get in a disagreement, I would go into like survival mode and get like mean. And like you would be like, what is happening?
Yeah, there's a lot of expectations we both had that weren't fulfilled. Coming back, me more on the physical side, Erin more on the emotional side, which I'm sure any couple can relate with.
Yeah.
Reintegration, it was a challenge because no one talked about it.
Like I went to the little ceremony that the Army did, that the families could go to. Like, they did one before the men came home about like what to expect and like how they might behave, how they might act, if they're dealing with any kind of PTSD, anything like that. But again, that's where I just felt like I was fed fluff. Like, I was like, this doesn't apply to our life at all. Like, I felt like we were so unique in the sense of like, he wasn't active, he was guard, but you know, he's active while he's deployed, and so now he's managing a job and about to go into a police academy, and like, no one talked to us about how hard that time was and how important it was to really stop and like reconnect just us. Because when he got back home, like, we went crazy seeing everybody else. Like, he saw his friends, he saw all his family, we made sure he saw all my family, and that we spent time with everyone he hadn't spent time with. And it really did a damage to us, because I think we thought, like, well, we got to talk almost every day, even if it was just one text message. Like, we felt like we had been together, so he should be with the people he didn't see at all or really talk to at all. And that's kind of what we did during your 30 days off. And what we missed was stopping and taking time. Like, yes, we went on a honeymoon, which was amazing, but we didn't stop and like take time to just figure out life together, to literally reintegrate him into this life here.
Yeah, something we did much better the second deployment was reserve time for just ourselves, a lot of time. I mean, that's 9 to 10 months of being apart. And
whether you talk every day or not.
Yeah, and you need to reserve time together when you come back. And that's something we did not do the first time around, which did cause some strain, more on her end. It was more of her need than mine.
Yeah.
But both people do need it. So that was challenging. Unfulfilled expectations on both sides. And that's stuff we get into more another time, I think. But,
yeah. And the other thing is, I'll just throw in, like, when it comes to reintegration, like, don't be afraid to reach out, like, if you can find a good counselor. That's something we'll talk about later, but that was a game changer for our marriage.
It helped.
On a lot of fronts. And it was a pride thing. Like, I wasn't willing to do it. He was like, I think we should do this. And I was like, no. Like, I did it in my first marriage and it didn't work. And I was just snarky about it. Like, I put my foot down and I told him no. When in reality, when we finally did it, it was one of the best things we could have done.
Yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah. But, so I think the biggest takeaway from reintegration is like stopping and really figuring out, again, communicating what you guys need individually and together, and what those expectations are, because he didn't know my expectations and I didn't know his, and so we weren't meeting each other's expectations, and then we're just frustrated at each other all the time. You're just like, I was just angry and he was, angry on your end, and like there was just constant like tension, but we never talked about it.
Yeah.
Or when we did, there was so much tension already, it was just a fight.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, you guys are always welcome to, we don't have all the answers, but you're always welcome to reach out to us. Like, you can leave a question in the comments, or you can send an email. Because I know, like I said in the first episode, we didn't always feel like we had somebody we could talk to that understood what we went through. And for me, I just wanted to be like, hey, is this normal? Or like, are we not good together?
Yeah.
When we finally found people that had been through what we had been through, they were like, oh, that's normal. Like, it just makes you feel more sane. It makes you feel like the situation is more okay.
Yeah. And I think we did not have on either deployment a good FRG, a home family readiness group. So there was no way really for us to connect with families from the deployment who were going through it. And honestly, after 10 months of living with the same dudes, like, we don't want to see each other anyway. So like,
No.
that's unreasonable to expect people to connect with each other after being together for 10 months.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any family who'd been through a deployment. I
our
was the first one.
Your first deployment, wasn't it like mostly new guys? All new guys?
Yeah, but I'm talking about my family. Like,
Family.
I was
Sorry.
the first one in my family to
Yeah.
deploy since Vietnam. So there was no one really to connect with on that. So it was a lot of feeling alone and just figuring things out the hard way on our own. But counseling helped a lot.
Yes, it did. Having that third party person to just kind of be a referee. But I do want to kind of jump into the academy real fast, because that took a big toll on our marriage. And not a toll, it was just hard.
Yeah, it was hard.
And it was a big transition. Like, we went from one big transition to the next. And I know, especially in the first responder military community, that happens, right? Like, you get PCS orders from somewhere, or like to somewhere, and like things are just constantly changing, and kind of how to address that. So your academy started in July and lasted 6 months?
7 months.
7 months. I think the hardest thing about that is we didn't know what to expect, because his father's a police officer in the same department, and so was mine. So we had some expectations, but then again, they went through their academy like many years before you went through your academy.
30 plus years ago.
Yeah, many years before. And so we struggled a lot again therein of just, for me, I struggled with not feeling together. Like, my number one love language is quality time.
Well, let's explain what this academy was like first before we
Yeah,
start.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was 7 months long, started in July, ended in December. This is 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It was a stay-at-home academy, so I didn't live at the academy. But I'd almost say living there would have been easier.
Yeah,
Because I'd have to be up, leaving my house at 4:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't get back home till probably 5 or 6 in the evening.
And you had gobs of homework.
Yeah, and that was Monday through,
Friday.
I don't remember if it was 4 days or 5 days a week.
I
But
think it was 5.
okay.
I don't know.
Anyway, it was all week long, and then that wasn't it. I'd come home, and we're there, just getting smoked all day long, getting yelled at, getting pepper sprayed, getting tased, and passing all these tests, trying to make it through.
Just thought about when you came home from getting pepper sprayed.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a funny story. We'll share it later.
Yeah. Just, it sucked. It's like basic training, just way worse. And then to come home and I have a ton of homework to do. And
a wife to...
And a wife to talk to.
And we didn't have kids.
And we didn't have kids. We were just us at this time. And trying to manage the academy, the homework, and our personal life, and the stress, because it was really stressful. It was really, really hard. And in the middle of it, we got a puppy.
No. Well, yes.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Yeah.
Let's just say at one point we had 4 dogs, 2 of which were puppies.
Yeah. So the academy that was a really difficult time for us coming off of a deployment. We hadn't even been living a year, together for a year yet before the academy started. And I'm the type of person when I'm at work, I want to do the best I can. So I put all my energy into it. And I really didn't do a good job of saving bandwidth, if you will, for the marriage. And we went through some really rough patches in that academy period, because she's expecting me to give more time to her. I feel like I have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
I'm completely tapped out. And 7 months was a long, long time.
Right? We just went from long to long.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think something, so I was going to touch on this, which is important because we didn't do this until well into our marriage, but was finding out what each other's love language is. Because it's super important. He had no idea how much like quality time meant to me. Because I would just be like, I want to talk with you. Like, I want to hang out with you. Like, why can't you just talk to me? And that would literally be the basis of most of our arguments. Was because he was so tapped out from the academy. And all I wanted was to just sit down and talk with him. Like, that's all I wanted. I just wanted his undivided attention. But he would be doing homework at dinner. And then he would go do homework after dinner. And then he would do homework and fall asleep doing homework in bed. And, like, I never had his full attention because he was so focused on the academy, which he should have been, but that need was completely missed and we didn't know it. And then when I found out his number one love language was physical touch, shocker, men.
Like, yeah, go figure.
Go figure. That was a game changer for me because I am not, like, I like to cuddle, but I'm never just gonna, like, aww.
Well, I don't like that either.
I know, but, like, you just, like, even if I, like, rub your hands, or like rub your back, and like that's not me. Like I don't want a massage unless it's from a masseuse and it's like a deep tissue massage. So like we are complete opposites in that area. So like I have to work to help meet that love language and need of his, and he has to work to meet my need and love language of mine. And that was something we just didn't identify until we went to counseling.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What are your love languages?" And we were like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Like, what? So, you know, I think if you're about to step into this situation, whether you've been married for a long time or not, like, stop and re-identify, like, what those are and what your needs are, and have a conversation with each other about your needs and expectations stepping into a rough situation.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to change your expectations and priorities as you go through it. So, if you're about to go into something really long and difficult, whether it be a deployment, a police academy, or anything else, you're moving. This channel's not only for military and first responders.
Yeah,
this is what we can relate to.
You're moving or switching jobs or
just sit
even
down.
about to have kids.
Yeah, sit down together, talk about what your expectations are for each other, and then regularly reassess them because they are going to change.
Like weekly. That's what we do now.
Yeah, and be open to what the other person says. Going back, if I had told Erin, look, I love you, but over these next 7 months,
Stop talking.
I'm going to be very tapped out. I need you to have some grace with me on that. And if she had been open to that, it would have been it would still been hard, but it would have been easier.
I think it's really, like, what we never did was we never recognized, the other person's need and then, like, discussed basically what the compromise is. Because I remember, during that time, I was like, I never feel heard. Because I just kept hammering him with, like, just talk to me, like, just be with me. And then he would be like, I can't. And so we obviously didn't communicate very well. But if we could have sat down and him been like, I hear what you need. I'm going to give that to you in this capacity. This is what I'm dealing with. I would have been like, oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Because when you love your person, like, you're willing, like, you know them enough. Like, I know him enough when he does that now where I'm like, I'm sorry, like, absolutely. Like, he'll come to me sometimes, like, I'll just be talking, shocker. And he'll be like, babe, I love you. What you're saying is important, but I need a break right now. And I'm like, okay. Like, okay, we'll talk about this later. And I'll just, like, move on. But there's that, it's acknowledging the other person's need, not dismissing it. Not being like, oh yeah, I'll give that to you, and then, like, walking away. It's genuinely acknowledging it and then finding steps together of, like, how to make that happen in the situation that you're in.
Yeah. I mean, it's cliche, but communication is key. You have to do it, or else you're going to have expectations that aren't heard, expectations that aren't met. Resentment's going to build, tension's going to build, it's going to blow up, which is what happened to us many times.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
And then both people's needs will suffer.
Yeah, we'd get into these like massive fights, and then we'd be like, what were we even fighting about? And then we'd talk about it, and I'd be like, well, if I would have known that, and he'd be like, well, if I would have known, like, we just felt so stupid.
Yeah.
Because we got into these huge fights, and we didn't communicate, because we just kept living life like normal. I don't feel like we ever addressed like, this is a police academy, or like, this is reintegration. Like, I don't feel like we ever addressed the season that we were in the beginning of our marriage. I think we just thought we should be okay.
And again, have thick skin. That goes a long way. We're in a world and a culture now where everybody's feelings always matter. You know, sometimes you just gotta suck it up and understand that you're going through a hard time.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And your spouse might say something that might hurt your feelings. Suck it up. Like, don't be insensitive to each other, but sometimes you gotta have thick skin or you're not gonna make it.
We have a saying here, and it's be like a duck, let it roll off your back.
Yeah.
Because some things you have to assess the situation that you're in and just essentially let the water roll off your back and keep swimming on. Because there are times I'll be like, just be like a duck. We're gonna be like ducks. And it sounds super cheesy, but that was the only analogy I could think of. But if you're stepping into a move, a job change, any kind of life change, I think it's really just stopping and addressing the season you're in and just frequent communication. Because even from there, like, you graduated the academy and we were like, yeah, like, life's gonna get better. And then he started OJT. Yeah. And life did not get better.
Yeah, we'll get more to that later. This episode's going long.
Yeah, this is it. That's the first 2 years of our marriage. It literally, like, we will jump into him working the job in the next episode. But yeah, I think the things that we learned, see our daughters, she's like, hello, I'm done with this. I think, you want to just cover the main things that you feel like we learned the first 2 years.
Yeah, so again, first 2 years, married and police academy.
Deployment.
Married, deployment, police academy. Again, it's cliche, but communication is key. Constantly be talking.
Yeah.
Have thick skin. Be open to each other's needs.
Listen.
And it requires hard work. And I'm saying all this because our first 2 years were not good as far as how we were.
No.
And we made a lot of mistakes, and it was really rough on our marriage. And it made things harder for the years that came after that. We've been through some really rough times. Yeah. So this was kind of like the paving the way for really hard times. Yeah,
those 2 years are really what set us up for the next 2 years, which were probably some of the hardest in our marriage.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of unresolved things from these 2 years that we never talked about that just carried over to the next.
Keeps building.
Anyway.
But we'll talk about that next time. But thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a long one. We want to share our story so you understand our background and what we've walked through. If we ever bring something up, so that'll be the next couple episodes. Of just getting through our marriage. I hope that you guys are having a good day, evening, morning, night, whenever you're watching this. As always, if you can, please like, subscribe, share. It means the world to us. And we hope you guys have a good one. Bye.
Bye.